Which Side Podcast is a proud member of the Which Side Media Collective.
This week's episode is brought to us by the Which Side Media Collective store. All month long, we are offering a free patch with the purchase of a shirt. So for every shirt that you purchase, we'll offer a free patch. Use promo code FREEPATCH.
Yeah, so just order your shirt, find the patch you want, use promo code FREEPATCH. We'll get that shit on the way to you.
If you order 2 shirts, do you get 2 patches?
Sure.
If you order 3 shirts, do you get 3 patches?
You know, if you order 3, I'll throw in a 4th one for free.
Wow, you heard it here first, folks.
Yep.
WhичSideCollective.org, promo code FREEPATCH.
Just want to give an update to everyone who ordered the Vespa shirts. Yeah, we're going to be printing those in the next week or so. So look forward to those hitting your doorsteps pretty soon. So thank you for all your orders. This is episode 178.
Yeah, we talked to the folks over at the Species Barrier.
Yeah, Ruth and Marcus. So the audio is little, sometimes.
We're in a brand new studio, and they called in from all the way across the pond.
So, yep, working out a little bit of the connection issues, so we'll clean it up the best we can. So just stick through it. It's a really good conversation. Hey, Jordan, what news and events do you have going on this week?
Well, on April 17th, it's the first annual 2016 Durango VegFest. It's not quite this week, but it's coming up.
First annual would actually be called inaugural.
First annual is what it says on my piece of paper. So
just saying.
First annual.
Okay.
It's going to happen. Again, they already know it.
They already know it?
Yep.
Yeah. Good for them. Go to it. Yeah. Go. If you're in Durango, hit that up.
We're having the first annual VegFest in Salt Lake City, too, in September. So
good deal.
It's going to happen. Ain't no inauguration for that.
It's inaugural.
Inauguration? This week's listener shout-out comes from Nick Valick. They told us that we could shout out whatever we wanted. So we're going to shout out Driftwood Magazine.
Issue 2 is just out, so go check them out. driftwoodmag.com.
Thanks so much for the shout-out, Nick. If you would like to be a listener shout-out for an episode, all you need to do is go to whichsidepodcast.com, click on the donate tab, and give us your money.
Yeah, just give us your money. Or you can go to whichsidecollective.org and buy like a bandana. It comes with a shout out.
Yeah. Every shout out comes with
a bandana.
With a bandana or a patch.
Or a patch, yeah.
So get your swag on.
Hey Jordan.
Yes?
Do you know what happened on April 6th, 1968?
Yeah, this lady went and she bought some bread at a corner store.
That's pretty accurate, but according to the slingshot, that didn't quite make the cut.
Okay.
As far as historical events. Mm-hmm. But according to the slingshot, that's when Oakland police murdered Bobby Hutton.
Well, now I feel like a jerk.
Yeah, you should have known that one. You get these little tidbits of history out of the slingshot personal organizer. Get your shit organized. You can get one at a local info shop or an online info shop like AK Press.
They don't sponsor us to shout them out. We just like them.
I sincerely hope you enjoy this episode.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side? Which side are you on? 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 Which side are you on?
Yes, I've heard quite a few episodes of Which Side Podcast. So.
Yeah, which ones have you been listening to?
It wasn't just with a view to being on the show. I've heard quite a lot in the past. Kim Soka.
Yeah, we've been listening to Kim Soka recently again.
Yeah.
I can't think.
These are people we've got coming up for one of our shows, like rational views in veganism versus kind of spiritual views. So we've got like Will Tuttle on one side, and we've got like Kim Soka and Rebecca Fox, who've both been on your show before.
Yeah.
Saying that you shouldn't be using these religious arguments. And that's one example of who we've got coming up and ones we've listened to of yours.
I always have a really hard time when people use the religious arguments for veganism. It's like using like feminist arguments for going veganism at the same time. It's like, PETA using, anti-feminist tactics. It's like, it's not, we should be, full encompassing and not, just focused on one, single issue.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think Will Tuttle was very interesting because he said, what was he? He said, Marcus, at the VegFest. Have you got the quote? Oh, you won't have the quote in front of you, but it was an interesting one.
I think his quote was that, was it something about the material world? Anyone who believes in the material world is being reductionist. If you believe in atoms, and what was the context of it?
It was basically, it's all a carnivore world. If you don't believe in spirituality, then you're a carnivore mentality. It's very strange.
There was a recent big event. We had in the UK, the big events are called VegFest. So you've got I did a London VegFest. I was on the panel of that last year. And this year at Brighton VegFest, it was Will Tuttle. And he was just making this very strange point that if you have this kind of scientific view of the universe, then that's a carnivore mentality. So that upset a few people.
I just never understood that point of view, that you need to have that spirituality aspect of life. Like, why can't you have morality and not have, a religion?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're both atheists. We don't, you can be moral and it's not have religion or spirituality.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that physical reality, materialist view of the universe, and here I'm vegan. I don't think I've got a carnivore mentality.
So, were you guys raised atheists, or how did you come to being atheist?
No, I was raised very religious. I was more sort of Baptist Christian, but I was more religious than my parents for some very strange reason. And so when I met Marcus, I was going to Bible school, Bible study and church twice a week and all this type of thing. And then he sort of questioned. He just sort of said, well, what do you believe? And it all fell apart really quickly because I started researching what I was meant to believe. Even though I'd been researching it, that doesn't really make any sense. But I think the more I looked into Christianity, the more I thought, oh, this doesn't actually make any sense. And so it fell apart for me. Before I knew it, I sort of went from really Christian to really atheist and obsessed with all the atheist podcasts and everything.
Yeah, I never really had any strong sense of religion or spirituality at all. And on the contrary, I was like an anti-theist, I suppose, or I still am, like a bit like Kim Soka, that I believe that religion is actually a negative harm and a force for very bad ideas in society, not least speciesism and sexism and all sorts of other issues.
I think I was down the same path as Ruth, kind of where I just was studying theology because I wanted to believe and know everything possible, and then that's when it happened. It's just like, nope.
It's quite common, I think. I've heard it a lot from atheists, ex-Christians who are now atheists, that actually when you start studying it more, a lot of people become atheists because they realize it doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't stand up to scrutiny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it really doesn't. And it's funny because just like you, I also was probably as a kid more religious than my family. I was the ones always saying, we need to read the Bible every day, and we need to, be praying, all the time. And anytime people had any questions, it's like, well, did you pray about it yet? And that was me as 8, 9-year-old kid. And now look at me.
Yeah, and I was the same. I actually persuaded my parents because we're Baptists. You're not normally baptized until you're about 16, and I persuaded them at when I was 9 that I needed to get baptized. I was really wanting to get baptized. I got confirmed, I think it's 16. And then by the time I was about 18 and a half, I was atheist.
So how did your parents take to your change?
Ooh, they probably didn't like the fact I started having, Dawkins books around the house and got delusion and all that. They weren't so keen on that. I mean, I was at university. My parents live in Hong Kong. We're in the UK. So they saw me. I left Hong Kong Christian, and I came back, probably my second visit back, I was a proper hardcore atheist, challenging my mum on everything. And my dad, actually, he sort of said to me, because I asked him whether he believed the creation story, and he went, probably not, but don't tell your mum. And my grandma actually was really awesome, my dad's mum. She read The God Delusion. She was a Christian, sadly passed away, and she read it and she came back to me. She was a really interesting lady. She'd read anything and everything. Came back to me and said, you know what? It makes a lot of sense, and I get what he's saying, but I want to talk to your granddad anyway. Fine. I'm fine with that. You're not pushing, you're not pushing it in anyone else, and you just, you understand it.
There's one thing you haven't made clear there. The granddad's dead.
Oh, good point. Good point on that one, just assuming. Yeah, so her thing was she was just literally Christian, she just almost, I guess it was spirituality for her. She just wanted to believe she could speak to her late husband.
Mm-hmm. That is one thing that I found, being atheist, people that are extremely religious don't understand that a lot of us, we don't have that closure that a lot of people have, like during times of death, where, you have this belief you're going to see this other person again, and you can hold on to that and not necessarily go through the whole grieving process all the way, where people who don't believe that at all, sometimes it hits them a lot harder, and it's harder to go through that grieving process with that realization of, this person that I loved and cherished is gone forever,
Yeah, no, I agree with you totally. And obviously you still get it when someone dies. And we get it because I'm in animal rescue. I get it a lot with the whole Rainbow Bridge thing. I don't know if you've heard of that. The animals have gone to this special place where they run free and all this.
And you'll see them again.
Yeah, you'll see them again, which is a big thing. And
never heard that. Yeah, I'm not
no, really.
Bridge,
It's really big. Maybe it's a UK thing. But there's always this thing about Rainbow Bridge. And doesn't do anything for me. I'm just like, no, I don't believe that. And I know they're doing it as a way to make themselves feel better, but for me it's almost downplaying the great grief you have when you lose a family member.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, goodbye is really farewell, isn't it? If you don't have any of those metaphysical beliefs beyond the grave, then you realise that this is the one experience you'll ever have with that person.
I do feel bad for the people who are taken advantage of by these psychics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That because they do have this belief of this afterlife, that they're more vulnerable of falling into the traps of these psychics and stuff like that.
I suppose the one thing is that they always have to come out with something positive, don't they? In order to have you returning back to your psychic over and over again, they always just tell you the same comforting things. They never tell you your aunt tells us she hated you or something like that. It's always going to be that, oh yeah, it's keeping an eye on you, so proud of you, they love you still. So they're getting kind of reinforced feelings for their loved one. But as you say, they are taking advantage.
Yeah, we went to one with your mum, didn't we, Marcus? It was in Lincoln, and by God, it was awful. And they had this woman drawing she was meant to be drawing pictures of someone who's passed away.
From the spirit realm.
Yeah, from the spiritual realm. And she was either a really bad artist.
We should draw these most vague,
they're awful.
middle of the road drawings, which would appeal to virtually everyone in the audience. It's like, yeah, that kind of looks like my uncle, yeah.
Barnum drawings.
Yeah. Just apply one size fits all. Kim Soker's Bakushi on bed, yeah.
So were you guys both atheists before coming to veganism, or was it about the same time that you kind of came to it, or did veganism come first?
I'd say I was atheist first. I mean, with me, veganism was like a slow burning thing where I was kind of repulsed by animal products more so than ethically opposed to them at that point. Mm-hmm. So even as like a baby, I was known for pushing flesh away. I don't want sausages, or don't want mince or whatever else. It's just something I was always doing. And then later on, I got disgusted by the idea of eggs and milk as well. And, you know, before I think it was listening to a Prince song where he was singing about being a vegan. And I was a big fan of Prince, still am. And that maybe introduced the concept of veganism as an ethic to me. And at that point, when I started getting into it, so I think at that point I was already atheist.
And for me, I was vegan before I went atheist. I went vegan almost exactly 9 years ago. So I was 17, and I went atheist about, like I said, about 18 and a half, 19. And so, yeah, for me, veganism was a complete ethical thing. I started along the sort of baby steps, vegetarian, although I'd never met a vegetarian or vegan when I went vegetarian at, I think, about 14. And for me, I just sort of gradually, as I found out about each animal product, I just got rid of them, you know. And then one day I woke up and I realized I was vegan without really knowing what the word is. And I was sort of researching more. And then I realized that was the ethical stance I believed in, that animals aren't ours to use.
I think the links are huge. I think obviously both come from this human supremacist standpoint where, you know, whether we're made in a God's image and all the other animals are just created for our use, and all these very anthropocentric ideas. I think the crossover is huge. That's a big part of why I would call myself an anti-theist, you know, that it puts other animals in this such inferior position.
It's always weird to me when you meet the people who their veganism is part of like what brings them closer to their religion. Because veganism for me, I went vegan before I became an atheist, and it's what pulled me away from religion. Like being able to critically look at it and be like, well, you know, we can't just look at it from this one perspective and all things need to matter, but you're saying that they don't matter. So obviously there's something wrong here, you know?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
So Ruth, it sounds like you went through like a lot of change between like that 15 to 18-ish time frame. How was your family with all of that change, not just like the atheism? It seems like a lot of coming through happened in that time frame.
Yeah, it was. My family have actually been really good, I have to say. When I went, I don't really know why I went vegetarian. I guess I'd been researching it. We were on holiday in South Africa, of all places, really not the most vegetarian-friendly place. And I woke up on the 30th of March and just went, I'm going vegetarian. And I don't really know why. I think it must have just been a culmination of thoughts of research, and they just laughed it off. You know, I'd done it before for a few days, and I hadn't stuck. And the veganism was slightly different. They weren't. I was coming out the back of anorexia, and so the idea of me giving up more food products, as they saw, wasn't the most appealing to them. However, I explained, you know, the ethical reasons behind this, how I'd get all protein, etc. And also I'm a stubborn sod, and I wasn't going to eat animal products. So it was as simple as that. They didn't really have much option or much choice. And so they initially were a little bit against it, but now they're very, very supportive. They make great meals for me when I go home. And while they are non-vegan and that drives me out the wall, they're very supportive.
I think that was very similar with my family as well, where they thought it was maybe like a phase or something like that. But now my mom's a vegetarian, so there's success.
Oh. I wish I could get mine to go vegan. It'd be really positive. Of course, it'd be positive, but it'd be. I just think they understand. they understand, but yet they obviously don't. But I've had so many discussions with them, and spoken about theory, etc. And they understand the theory, and they just don't go vegan.
This is true of basically everyone in society, though, isn't it? Everybody claims that causing unnecessary suffering to another animal is wrong. Then they have in the back of their head somehow that eating animal products is necessary, when we know for a fact that it's not.
It's the bacon though argument, honestly.
Oh,
But I think that families are probably just one of the hardest, and it's how it's always been for me, at least. Like I've helped many people go vegan, but it wasn't until like maybe 3 years ago that my mom finally decided she wanted to stop eating meat. So
Marcus's family is not too bad. His mum's probably she's vegetarian, but she's mostly plant-based. She lives very close to us, and no animal products are allowed in our house, full stop. And she comes around quite a bit. So obviously when she's with us, she's eating she's eating vegan food. And when she's at home, she eats pretty much plant-based, which is great. But I think her thing, actually, which is quite common in certain people but her thing is she doesn't want to be labelled as a vegan. She doesn't want to stand out. She doesn't want to be different.
And I think that was very similar with my mother. She didn't want to call herself a vegetarian just because in corporate settings it wasn't like very well received.
Yeah,
so.
She was really worried about how it would be taken if she was at a business like lunch or dinner and being like, I need a salad. Like just like if she felt inferior because of it.
Yeah, you're automatically isolating yourself to some extent, I suppose, or at least putting yourself into a different bracket, aren't you? Humans naturally want to feel included and part of the gang.
So how did you both start the Species Barrier?
Well, we started. We're a couple, and I was. We've got a vegan group in Lincoln in the UK called Vegan Outreach Lincoln East Midlands, and we got contacted by a local radio station to talk about. I think it was fur, basically, and we came along and changed the whole discussion over to animal products. We said, yeah, fur's bad, but so is everything else. And they were like, oh, wow, okay. And they quite liked the interview. So we got invited back. And I think the second one was actually about animal rescue, because obviously I'm in animal rescue. And so while I was in there, they said, well, you guys interview quite well. I went, yeah, do you want us to do a radio show? Thinking, what have I just said?
I think you'd had the idea previously to do some kind of podcast. Like we used to listen to the Vegan Freaks podcast, which a lot of people did.
Awesome.
I think Ruth fancied doing something like that as well. But
it was a bit of a joke, to be honest. It was a bit of there's no way they'll let us do an animal rights podcast. And they did. It was a little bit difficult at first. I mean, we were the first vegan radio show in the UK, and there's a reason for that, because we got called in a few times early on because they wanted us to be more, in their words, balanced.
They wanted us to be balanced in regard that if you spoke against, I don't know, an animal product, that you then have the farmer come in and defend it to almost that extent. So it's almost like a 50-50 thing where you can have to have this balanced debate on everything, no matter which side is ethical or otherwise. And of course, like we know, in the media and in society in general, it's like 99.9% in favour of exploiting other animals. So that we were carving out this tiny niche in the radio format. It was a bit unfair that we had to be 50-50 as well when we were going to put across this alternate perspective. Of course, we're beyond a minority voice.
Yeah, so we managed to persuade them that we didn't need to do this 50-50 thing. And that was they sort of left us alone about 4 months in, about 3-4 months in, decided, we can't be bothered with you guys, just do what you want. We'll just put it on the radio for you. And so they've been brilliant. I don't know they actually listen to it, but it does go out the radio station. But
we've checked. It does.
We have checked. We were like, are we sure we're going out? But yeah, they decided to leave us alone, and I think the fact that we're very careful with editing and we put out a good high quality in terms of editing and everything else show makes them, they're happy with it.
I think they would, to begin with, they would just talk of people being offended by what we were saying. You know, everyone feeling, someone in the studio, they would say, is listening to this, they're feeling judged or they're feeling uncomfortable about what you're saying or suggesting that X thing that we do is unethical. They were very big on that to begin with, that it might be alienating to the listeners. But I think at the same time, they respected that the show was well made, interesting, or well put together, thought out. So I think over time, they just came to be very pro the show in their own way.
Have you had any other problems with them as far as like content, or had them come to you and like actually get in trouble for things that you've put on the air?
We did only early on. I think it was only maybe the first few episodes where they were just saying people felt judged, and that really was it. Since then, no, we've put out some pretty niche stuff, and I think, as you all know, your podcast, your radio show, whatever, develops over time, and so I think they've got used to it, and we've got more comfortable doing it. And we're also, what we do now is we put out the radio show. We try and get some local content in the radio show version. We also try and target it more to, when we're editing, we edit it so it's okay for someone who doesn't really understand environmentalism, doesn't really understand veganism. There's no point having really intense vegan theory discussions on mainstream media because they don't understand. They don't get the basics.
They haven't even gone on to step one yet, so there'd be no point in, hitting them with a load of theory, or either environmental or veganism. Obviously, so the show is about both of those themes. We wanted to make it wide-ranging, and we wanted to always have topics to be discussing. So we, what's the description you've got written?
Yeah. And the official description is: two vegan environmentalists question how we interact with the planet and the other animals who call it home.
Yeah, I haven't said that because it's pre-recorded. It's pre-recorded at the beginning of each episode. So I haven't said it for so long now, I don't know what it is. But so it gave us so much scope. We've had so many different guests, and over the years,
getting people involved as well, getting the environmentalists to listen to the vegan content and the vegans to listen to the environmental content.
Which one do you find is harder? Like, is it harder to get someone who's already inclinated towards veganism and animal rights to listen to the environmental aspect, or do you find it harder the other way around, where environmentalists to take on the animal rights aspect?
I think it's easier for the vegans to take on the environmental aspects. I think we've made the link very clear that the environment is where the habitat for other species is. And if you care about those wild animals, you have to preserve their habitat. You have to preserve the environment so that they can live. And so I think they can connect it that way, which is a link we've always made super clear. I think in the environmental case, you can appeal to people on an environmental level, with the cowspiracy type arguments. Yeah. You can tell them that sometimes they may only look at the cows as the problem. So they'll say, oh, yes, it's cows. I won't have my steak. I won't have my milk. But whether they're accepting veganism as an ethic, that's a really different thing. They're just looking to minimize their carbon footprints. And that doesn't rule out to a lot of them maybe having chickens and fishes and all sorts of other animals. So I can't say that they're taking a vegan ethic on board.
What kind of critiques do you get from people in the animal rights world with what you're doing?
The animal rights world, probably the fact we go so much into environmentalism, and then it'll be the guests, the individual guests, trying to...
We seem to reach a different audience with every episode. We always have very strict themes. Like we've had an episode on green anarchy. You've probably heard of John Zerza and Derek Jensen. Mm-hmm. We've had people like that on in one episode, going in onto an environmental aspect. Obviously, neither of them are vegan. So we do just go into those kind of aspects. And there are crossovers, and, they accept speciesism as well, even if they don't come to our conclusions that we would say are ethical imperatives. But which other guests have we had? Then there's like celebrities, health people.
Yeah, I think we get, for when we do things like green anarchism and things, then we'll get the vegans saying, well, they're not vegan.
Well, Derek Jensen,
and he's hostile to veganism.
Yeah,
but it's an interesting perspective to get on the show, because it's something that's very interesting and sort of trying to think more environmental. I think we tried to do the whole balanced argument once when we had a guy from, my dad works for an airline. He's a pilot and he's a manager now. And so we got the guy, the environmental guy from Cathay Pacific on. And then we got Stop Stansted and Stop Heathrow Extend. And that's when we got, well, why are you having the other guy on? He's just talking a load of rubbish.
I think, he
probably was true.
Yeah, he showed himself up. The other guests just put holes in his arguments, and I think that worked out quite well. It's not something we're afraid to do, because you can have that, but obviously, usually it's issues that will interest us and topics that we're finding interesting at that moment. Like I said to you, we're going to have that rationality versus spirituality and veganism debate coming up in a future episode. The episode we've got coming out this Wednesday, that'll be April the 5th.
No, 6th. Yeah,
April the 6th. That's a very diverse one that we could talk about. That we've got the lady who was the guardian of the world's oldest dog at the time, which was fed on a plant-based diet. And we've also got a lady who runs an animal sanctuary and believes that vegans owe it to themselves to keep themselves fit and healthy and eat well and exercise in order to be sustainable activists. So that was a wide-ranging.
And then we've got someone who's doing more of a local thing where they're travelling around the UK and meeting vegans and trying to explore the vegan community within the coastline of the UK.
Yeah, there's a vegan festival coming up here this weekend. So this guy's going to be passing through on his tour of the UK on his motorbike. So that was a bit of a little general interest story. And also going in with Brambles, who's the oldest dog. She wanted to talk about housing development and the march of human civilization over the remaining green spaces. Now we're losing all our last forests and last green areas. It was a big passion of hers. So she really wanted to go in on that. So it's a really wide-ranging episode.
It's funny that you brought up Derek Jensen and John Zerzan, because we've talked about having both of them on. And for me personally, I know with Derek and his transphobia and with John Zerzan and his rebuttals of things like art, I would have a hard time having a good conversation. It would just divulge into just arguing, and nothing positive would come out of it. So how do you both deal with having such a wide variety of people on your show with opinions that vastly differ from your own?
I think the natural bias probably shows in that we prefer to talk to them in the areas that we find interesting, not necessarily even agree on, but just areas of their work that we find interesting. It's like I do listen to John Zerzan's radio show each week, and I enjoy aspects of his critique. I don't agree on everything, but I just found it interesting to have him on. Not necessarily that we'll agree on everything. It'd be a very short show, and it'd be a very infrequent show if we just had people on who agreed with us on everything. It would just be the two of us on the radio each week.
Yeah.
So I don't mind that disagreement. We've had the founder of the ecological footprint idea come on. We've had non-vegan Paul Ehrlich, Professor Paul Ehrlich come on. He's not vegan. And then we've had a load of vegans come on, who might not share the environmental input. Or
are a completely different, they're different sort of vegan theory to us. And, editing's really useful too. Obviously, we don't make them say things they haven't, but if there's something we were like, I think Derek Jensen, where he was talking about salmon giving their lives, and we're both sitting here with our heads in our hands thinking, no, that's going on the editing.
Yes.
We're not allowing him to just say that on our show.
As you probably know, Derek Jensen's allied to Leah Keith, who wrote the Vegetarian Myth, so they're very hostile to plant-based agriculture and see it as a unique problem. he's saying things about salmon speaking to him and saying they want him to eat their bodies and saying we give you our bodies, but please take care of the forest and all these strange concepts. And, you know, that's probably not something we're willing to give an airing to. Or
No, definitely not.
Yeah,
No, it was hard, and we pretty much, as soon as we went into that, we were like, oh, we've got to go now, because there's no point. We're not going to go into veganism with Derek Jensen, you know.
And I think that's something we run into where
we did plan to.
We did plan to a little bit. We had some sort of.
Sorry, I didn't hear you there.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, we run into that where, you know, we talk to so many different people, and lots of people have, you know, a wide variety of views, which the vast majority we don't agree with 100%. But at certain points, it's just like, I can't let you
keep talking about this because
I'm not going to give you a platform for this, you know, issue. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was it. So with Derek Jensen, we wouldn't give him a platform to start putting his radical feminist theory across, which is obviously transphobic and exclusion for a lot of people. We just wouldn't raise that topic with him.
Absolutely.
And in John Zerzan's case, no, he was a very friendly guest. He was a good guy. And it just made for an interesting show.
Yeah, it was something a bit different. I think that was quite a hard one to get for the radio. I have to say, ready for the radio.
So you were saying you listened to John Zerzan on his weekly show. I personally don't. Am I missing out on something?
I just find it an interesting perspective. Obviously, he attributes everything that's wrong in the world to technology and the beginning of agriculture and domestication in general. I have some sympathy. I think, obviously, civilization, or I believe that human civilization is totally unsustainable. And there's a lot of reports coming out that suggest, you know, we haven't got much longer to go with this global civilization that's trying to infinitely grow on a finite planet. And I just agree with that basic critique. He's very obsessed with school shootings as a sign of the decay of society, and don't know if I would single that out especially. But I just find his understanding of how destructive and unsustainable the way we are living is, and I agree with him on that much.
Do you find yourself gravitating towards primitivism more than yourself?
No, I wouldn't say I gravitate towards primitivism. It's not workable in the modern context. Obviously, there's 7.4 billion humans, and we can't just go out into the forest. You know, we've destroyed the forest. We can't really just descend on the wildlife now and go out there and start hunting or anything. But obviously, it was a much more sustainable way of living when there were far fewer humans, and they were living in a more sustainable lifestyle. But I don't think it's a possibility in any kind of modern context. And I don't know that anything like that could work now, or that we could be trusted to do it in a lot of ways.
So then what do you find your utopia to be?
That's quite a big question.
To be honest, what we did in our latest episode was a lot on climate change. The studies that are coming in on climate change at the moment are just ridiculous.
Oh, God,
they're just non-stop. They're coming in so frequently, and everyone is worse than the last one. And they're just getting ever more alarmist on how bad things are, but obviously nobody's reacting. So I always just think in realistic terms, and I don't feel like I'm trying to save the world or trying to get towards a utopia. I just feel like I'm mitigating against some of the decline. I just feel like trying to make things a little bit more ethical and reduce some of the suffering. But I don't think there is much hope for getting to any kind of utopia, so therefore I don't imagine one.
A bit like softening the blow, really, isn't it, of the collapse and, you know, everything else. We're wiping out, you know, wild animals where there's so much more famine and water. We were watching a program the other day on Pakistan, you know, all the huge water problems there. They just simply haven't got enough. And all we can do really is just soften the blow for this and try and help as many people through the bottleneck as possible.
Help as many other species through the bottleneck.
Yeah.
We had Guy McPherson on. I don't know if you've heard of Guy McPherson. He's a professor and a who's the emeritus professor at Arizona University, and he believes that humans are going to go extinct within the next decade or so. That's quite a severe prediction. Not everyone agrees with him. But his belief is that we should try and get as many of the other species through the bottleneck as possible, so that in our absence, they will have the ability to endure and carry on into the future. But that's one prediction. That's his goal in that context.
Do you find yourself like looking at all these different studies and going forward? Do you find yourself being like nihilist in tendencies and getting kind of just depressed over the whole thing?
I think it's really hard if you read them to not get depressed over the whole thing, to be honest. I think for me, they're actually quite scary. I find them very scary. They're scarier than any horror films. I was compiling the script the other day, and we keep a list of the ones we even notice, and this isn't all of them. And because we've been away just a few months, it literally, I got down, I don't know, quarter way down the list. I was like, we've got too many. We can't go through all these in the show. And so I had to just go through the rest of the list and just pick out a few key ones. We could have spoken, our latest show could have been 3-4 hours long if we'd actually done all the climate news. And, that is depressing.
I wouldn't say it's made us nihilistic, though. No. On the contrary, we seem to get more and more, I would describe as frustrated activists. We're like just saying, why isn't anyone listening to this? Why isn't anyone paying attention to this? We're saying this is a prediction. Why is everybody going on with life in a very normal way when this is just around the corner? Well, we're living in it now to a large extent, but things are going to get worse. And we're just saying, why isn't anyone paying attention to this? Why isn't anyone taking this seriously? They claim to value this society and they value this way of life, and they claim to love their families and their descendants and so on. But so why aren't they reacting? And why isn't anyone living with this in mind, that these predictions are coming through?
And I think I just read a study where one of the ice caps is melting at a faster rate than they had first initially thought, and possibly in our lifetime that the ocean levels are going to raise another 3 feet. And that could be devastating. 3 feet doesn't sound like a lot, but
they say that fun. It is. And another study just came out and said the Antarctica ice sheet, basically because the melt from Antarctica hasn't actually been factored into the 3 feet rise. So we're talking really doubling that at the moment, which was quite a scary study to be reading, actually, because you're thinking, oh my, 6 feet. And that's major cities gone. That's major coastlines gone. Mm-hmm. And then we push more into the wildlife. Obviously, we've got to get away from all that seawater rise, and we're pushing more into areas where wild animals live.
And that's it. There's so many tipping points that have been triggered, like methane being released under ice sheets and all these other ones. Clearing trees in itself is a feedback loop, because obviously they're storing the carbon. And you just hear of so many of these tipping points that are being crossed much quicker than they ever imagined. And like we said, every report that's coming in is more alarmist than the last one. It's just the rate they're coming in now is just, it didn't used to be that fast. And we used to have a lot anyway. The whole time we've been doing the show is obviously through a time of ecological collapse. And that is one of our main themes that we feature.
So besides, just being vegan, what more should we be doing to mitigate the potential disasters?
I think that's a really big question. I think there's so much we can do, because I know a lot of people obviously going off grid, etc. It's a great idea, grow your own veg, So when food supply, in the UK, for example, we import 40% of our food, and it's going to be 50%. I think it was 2040. Is that right, Mark?
Yeah. So basically, we're relying on taking resources from all these other countries.
It's elitist. It's completely elitist.
So in order to enjoy in the UK, just some statistics are that London consumes all the resources that the entire UK could naturally provide. And, we add a new city of Manchester to our population each year. And there's just all this increasing demand everywhere for everything. And we're just always, there's a film called Growth Busters. We had the direct one from that. And it's just growth, both financial and population growth. They're just, in the face of those, every cause just seems to be a lost cause. every cause relies on having a habitable planet to play it out as a stage. And in the face of these issues, every single day we had 230,000 new humans to the planet. That's after deaths. And that's a new city added to the planet every single day. And in the wake of that, it just seems like every cause you've got, every hope you have is a lost one.
When it comes to like the population rise, isn't most of that coming from underdeveloped nations?
I was going to say, yeah.
I just said, we had here in the UK, we had a city of Manchester to the population each year.
The most densely populated, in England's most densely populated country in Europe. And we're very developed, and we've got to look at the impacts, obviously, as well as consumption. There's a calculation IPAT basically looking at the impact is consumption times technology times population. That's about right. And so we have to look at even if our birth rates are slowing down, we've still got such huge impacts as Western consumers, as Westerners.
Yeah, and that's a point worth making. It's like, you could say America is the most overpopulated country on earth because of that high consumption per person. Mm-hmm. And it's also the third highest populated country on earth, 350 million, I believe. So it's quite a high population, and they're all living this really lavish lifestyle. But also, everyone on the planet wants to consume more. There's not anyone, especially not in the first world countries, who are saying, I want to consume less. I'm asking of my politicians, I'd like to consume less. Everyone wants to consume more. Everyone wants their children to consume more still than them. And everyone's got this idea on earth. It doesn't matter if you've got the larger families or the smaller families. Everyone trying to consume more, but we're all going to need land for agriculture. We're all going to need housing. We're all going to need the remaining clean water, etc. So we all play our part in that.
Do you find yourself being anti-capitalist when you look at these types, especially when you're talking about like consumption and Western point of views, and then that's what it tends for me at least. I'm just curious if you find yourself in that same situation.
I think, but naturally we're sort of more eco-socialist. However, all industrial economies and ideologies have been just as destructive environmentally, and just as species is, they're all harming other animals. And obviously we're completely against the capitalist society. And that's another reason we decided not to have children, because we would be bringing them into this capitalist society and they'd just be used as workers, consumer cogs in this machine in order to continue this growth.
There is no, again, we like talking about utopias earlier, there is nothing you can look back to that didn't rely on growth. It wasn't industrialized and so on. Well, we spoke about primitivism, obviously. That was a stage that is impossible to revert to now, but all the different ways of managing people, they always seem to have the same industrialized bent, which is always going to involve someone being sent down into a mine. Someone has to be desperate enough to go into a dangerous mine. Somebody needs to be desperate enough to be in these dangerous factories manufacturing goods. And like Ruth was saying there, ultimately it needs consumers and workers just being fed into the machine. And I don't know, that's what we would call the ultimate way of opting out of it, was just not to add anyone into
it. Sorry, do you feel like what else can we do besides just not feeding people into the machines? What can we do in our daily lives? Because like when I hear all these things, that's when I get nihilistic. I'm just like, well, we're all fucked anyways, right? So what does it really matter?
Yeah, I can see a point on that, but I guess it comes back to sort of softening the blow. If we can try and persuade other people either, to do, I don't know, say the right things, really sort of judgmental. But I guess it's things like trying to persuade people to go vegan, persuade people to do all the things they say are important, but also trying to persuade people not to also not add more humans, to also, try, I'm not sure protest the right word, just try and work outside the system, because it's not working, the system at the moment.
Yeah. just rethink their values. I think knowledge is power. So a lot of what we're doing is getting information out there. Like, we are frustrated that people aren't paying attention to these things and they're just carrying on as normal. And we do want people to realize how bad things actually are. And we want people to think about what choices they're going to make and what choices, whether it's what we're doing to other animals. In a stat that not many people have heard is that since 1970, wild animals have halved in number. That's like all of them combined. They've gone down by half just since 1970. And of course, during that same period, humans have doubled during that period. And we're just like saying, look, let's step back our impacts of all the other animals. We're just one species among millions here. Let's rethink our anthropocentric ideas. And let's also think about the kind of world we're going to be throwing new people into and what they're going to have to live through. And it's just, we're trying to reduce suffering, I think, would be the end goal. Like we've said, maybe try and set up a softer landing. But it's not, personally for me, it's not with a view to setting up a brave new world or creating some great new utopia, because it just seems like too many things have been triggered and too many feedback loops are in place now. But I do think we can minimize our impacts and also think carefully about who's going to suffer and how many of us want to go through this.
So personally, I'm not going to have kids ever in my life, but I think that would be like a tough pill to swallow for a lot of people. So do you think that like advocating for negative population growth or zero population growth is effective at all, or do you think that like just not having any kids is the way to go about it?
Obviously, our thing is we believe that there's no point in adding new humans to come in and suffer. But it's like veganism, isn't it? We personally don't believe a vegan world is going to happen. But it doesn't mean we shouldn't strive for it. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't be promoting it. We shouldn't be spending time doing what you guys do, doing what we do, getting out there, talking to people, just because it's not going to actually happen. And, each person we speak to who decides either to, may have children already and not add more children, or not have any at all, they're a small group of conscientious people. And will they make a difference? Realistically, probably not.
Well, what we could say here is that a great goal would be only 220,000 new humans after death being added to the planet every day. It's like we said earlier, it's 230,000 being
Mm-hmm. How does that not depress you, though?
So that would be a step in the right direction.
I'm really curious, though. Like how does that not depress you? How do you keep yourself not falling into that trap? And maybe I keep referring to that because I fall into that trap, and I need to figure out how not to do that.
Yeah, I can't say we're battling depression. I can't say we're battling depression that well. But like you said, we've thrown ourselves into a lot of different things, including this radio show, running a spay and neuter charity for, that's the dogs and cats.
The dogs and cats. I was going to say not humans.
Not humans yet.
We're not vets won't accept them.
So we are throwing ourselves into lots of different things because it mitigates against the suffering and it mitigates against some of this growth. Talking out on it, it doesn't resonate with a lot of people. But some, like we said, some conscientious people might just decide as a result to, just minimize some of this suffering, and we're mitigating against it. But yes, it is depressing. We can't.
It's like veganism. It's, veganism, when you first, I think especially when you first go vegan, it's really depressing time in a way, because you've suddenly got all this knowledge, and knowledge, sure is power, but it's also really scary. You suddenly find out, we kill 150 billion land animals a year, even more than that, for sea animals, and it can make you either you can get really depressed, or you can do something about it and maybe get one person to go vegan, get two people to go vegan. No, you're probably not going to change the world, but what's the alternative? Sitting at home eating Oreos.
I mean, I do that too.
Yeah, we do that too.
It's funny you said that. There's a pack of Oreos sitting in front of me right now. I'm like, God damn it.
It helps with the depression.
It really does. What's been the most rewarding thing for you in doing the species barrier so far?
Oh, I guess some of the listener emails are pretty good. You know, when you get people who say, you know, I hadn't really thought about this, be it, you know, population, be it veganism, be it general environmentalism. And, you know, we've had people coming in to us and say, look, I want to go vegan. And that's just the most awesome feeling.
Yeah, just great feedback. You know, occasionally you'll just get these long letters of people who've been listening for a long time, or these kind of things. And on iTunes as well, when you see all the statistics for iTunes, you know, like tens of thousands of listeners, and that's been really good as well.
Yeah, you see the numbers just going up and up, and because initially we, because I'm really not technologically advanced, I couldn't figure out how to go on iTunes. I know it's not complicated, but I couldn't figure it out. Anyway, once we got on iTunes, and suddenly we went from, you know, really small numbers just increasing up, I got a little bit obsessed. And I was like checking the numbers every day, but that actually made me feel quite happy, just because we were getting out there, because it was people were listening, and maybe they disagreed with us, maybe they listened because they hated us, but at least they're listening.
Also, it's been a lot of fun having people on who we admire, you know, people who interest us, and we enjoy the conversations. We enjoy having them.
It's been fun.
Like we've had one episode called Fanboy, and we had one episode called Fangirl. And for Fanboy, for me, it was Stickman from Dead Prez, who you've had on your show as well. And because I was really into Dead Prez when their first albums were coming out. So I was glad to have him on the show. It was a lot of fun, that episode. And then Ruth had been listening to Clean Patrick Rose podcast, so she was really excited to have her come on the show.
Yeah, sometimes you get some fun guests, and actually some of the guests have gone on to be really good friends of ours. I don't know if you guys know Ronnie Lee. He was one of the founders of the Animal Liberation Front, and yeah, we had him on. Yeah, he's a really nice guy. And when we met him, it was a bit of I guess I didn't know what he looked like, and I expected this 6'4" guy, you know, really big. I don't know why I expected that. That's completely weird. But anyway, I did. And he's about, I don't know, 5'2", and really with glasses on. I just thought, and he came up and gave me a massive hug, and it was like, oh, Ronnie Lee, you're so awesome. And he spoke. We had to actually cut him off after 2.5 hours. Wow. Because he was so interesting to talk to, but our dogs really needed to go to the toilet. And we needed to get home so we could let them out. So we're like, sorry, Ronnie, but come back again.
And I like MMA fighting in the UFC, so sometimes we'll have fighters on from that, the vegan fighters from the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Excuses. And we're both,
I like that.
We're both big football fans, so we had the first vegan footballer to come on the show as well. He was vegan throughout his top flight football career here, so just, yeah, we enjoy doing the interviews. We don't enjoy editing the show.
Oh, we hate editing the show.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize how much work really goes into putting out the shows, and we try not to do too much editing. We really like to keep it, you know, as live and raw as possible. But it's still amazing how much we still have to put in.
Even keeping it raw and like that, it still requires a lot of editing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we obviously have to edit within an inch of its life because it's going out on the radio, and because we're making the radio version, which has got to be only an hour, and then we've got the podcast version. And I'd say for the radio version, must take a couple of days for work, you know, to get proper, because we've got to have it so polished and so perfect, and you know, you just can't make a mistake, because we don't want to be called up on it. We don't want them to have any excuse to not put us out on the radio.
So you can't have air silence, really. You can't have gaps in conversation or anything like that. Even breaths. You remove breaths. Mistakes people make, like when I was just stuttering a minute ago. Yeah, it all has to be cut out. You know, you can't have any blemish in a radio program.
Yeah, we leave a lot of that in.
I'm going to be stuttering on this podcast. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And I could imagine having to do 2 different versions. And I know people that also cut it down into like a 30-second clip of just for like a preview,
like bumpers for other shows and things like that. Yeah,
it's just, there's so much work that people don't realize, but it's good fun.
Yeah. it's our least favorite. We just hate the editing aspects. We enjoy doing the interviews.
Exactly.
And we're really bad. We're really good at leaving it till last minute as well. Really good. So the number of overnighters we pulled on this, like it's due out at like 10 a.m. and we're in at like 9:30 and they're like, what are you doing? Why are you so late? Oh, sorry, I've been up all night. And we only go out once a month, but we still tend to leave it until the night before. But it's a lot of work. But I think it's worth it for the people you get listening, for the feedback you get, and for the people you get to speak to too. That's always good fun.
If you want to talk about leaving it to the last minute, this episode will post in 12 hours.
That beats us, I think, for interviews. Our interviews would be like well in advance. We just get so busy with everything else that we forget to do it and then realise it's due out the next day.
Yeah, like we've recorded with Will Tuttle already, but until we get
It's not going out for 2 months.
Yeah, that won't be going out for a couple of months until we get Rebecca Fox done for the alternate view, and we can just listen on certain interviews. They're not usually time specific. It's usually just their general ideas rather than some rush to get to a certain deadline.
Yeah, obviously the script we do as close to date as we can because obviously you want it to be up to date. We talk about any local events coming up, that type of thing. So that's the thing that probably is the most, the closest to time. We
started separating our interviews just into video files for YouTube, just because it's the news section that always dates our episodes. You don't really want to look back on an old news item, so we've started putting those up on YouTube, just the interviews themselves, and they seem to have been pretty well received.
Yeah. Well, I can't believe it's already been an hour. How can people get in touch with you guys and find out more about the species barrier?
Okay, we have a website which is thespeciesbarrier.com, nice and easy. We have an email, thespeciesbarrier@gmail.com, and then we're on iTunes, archive.org, YouTube, all under The Species Barrier. We're on Facebook, again, The Species Barrier. So, yeah, pretty easy to get hold of us, and we're pretty quick to reply, well, we try to be.
Well, we end every episode saying fuck, shit, damn. Would you mind saying it for us this week?
At the exact same time.
No, we're not doing that.
Have you had double guests on before?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did they say it at the same time?
Some of them, yeah.
Oh, we're not doing okay.
One.
Fuck, shit, damn.
This week you heard
Bontempi Latin by Holy Fuck.
Right now you're listening to
Melodious Thunk by Andrea Parker.
Hey, if you haven't yet, go rate and review us on iTunes. It's just a surefire way to be a stand-up person and, give something back for the free content you get. And it helps out the show. It makes it so people can find us through all the complicated algorithms and mathematics that
tubes and wires,
that magnets and stuff happens behind the scenes to make
Miracles.
people be able to see the show when they search for it. So go help us out. Go rate and review us on iTunes or whatever podcast aggregator you're using. It'd be super helpful.
Create a miracle.
Use magnets.
Rate and review us.
Oh, yeah.
If you're not yet our friend, be our friend. We're on all the social medias, so like us, follow us, friend us, high five us.
Are we on Friendster?
No, I dropped the MySpace off too.
So you're lying.
No, I'm not.
We're not on all of them.
All of them. Everyone you could think of.
All of them.
So check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and kind of Google.
That's all of them, I guess.
We'll get a Snapchat if you want. Maybe I'll make a Me Tomo. That's the new one right now.
I've never even heard of that. God damn it, I'm getting old.
Do a Grindr account.
I mean, I know of that one. Will interfere with my personal
Swipe
account?
right. Swipe right.
Well, fuck shit, damn.
Tinder, my bad. FSD.
Which Side Podcast is hosted and produced by Jordan Halliday and Jeremy Parkin of the Which Side Media Collective. with web design by Jordan Halliday and sound design by Jeremy Parkin. Booking by Mari Halliday. Theme music by Commandantes. Go to wishsidecollective.org to check out the other shows in the collective. As always, fuck shit damn.